Because of its exceptional geopolitical position and a number of intriguing reasons, India is gradually becoming the Switzerland of Asia. Everything from its neutral stance to its geopolitical position has helped the country immensely throughout the years, but India still faces some serious challenges. So, can it actually become the Switzerland of Asia? Stay tuned until the very end to find out. Welcome to Money-Minded World. Keep in mind that India is a massive nation, home to over 1 billion people, and boasts one of the world's most rapidly expanding economies. And to maintain its status as an independent superpower with a policy of armed neutrality, it would be tactful to use part of the resources available to the country to improve its standing with some of its allies. Now, part of Switzerland's formula for success is similar to what India's doing right now, but better. It appears to be a great strategy to battle the most significant enemy right on their doorstep, encroachments that are, incidentally, becoming more and more apparent by the day. The current Swiss government is doing a fantastic job of staying out of trouble, but India is apparently pulling off the impossible by keeping cordial relations with Russia, the European Union, the United States, and many other major powers in order to counteract China's influence. I mean, who'd want to fight with everyone's best friend? For India, this would be the ideal world if they could weaken China's influence in the region. But at the moment, what's intriguing is not that this idea is being formulated, but rather that India intends, and to some extent has already achieved it. Before going any further, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. One prime example of that is India's involvement in the Quad Agreement, or Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. Launched in 2007, it serves as a diplomatic and military cooperation network among India, Japan, Australia, and the United States to monitor and control national interests in the strategically important Indian and Pacific Oceans for international trade. India has made it quite apparent that they would prefer the Quad to remain a non-military forum that promotes trust and collaboration among regional nations rather than a formal military alliance. In other words, they would like everyone to just be nice and not get into fights. We are being extra cautious so as to protect India's neutrality and military independence, and also so as not to irritate our neighbor China any more than is absolutely required. In spite of this, it's no secret that China's expansionist ambitions in the Indo-Pacific region prompted the formation of the Quad. While it's reasonable to assume that India's Quad membership sends mixed signals to China, the same cannot be said for the US under Trump's presidency. And ever since, the USA has been trying to strengthen relationships with India. This is why in 2020, the United States managed to convince India to sign 2 important military cooperation agreements that would allow them to access sensitive geopolitical information. The BECA agreement, which stands for Basic Exchange and Cooperation for Geospatial Cooperation, and the LMOA agreement, which stands for Logistics Exchange Momentum of Agreement. The United States' efforts to strengthen its position in Asia depend on this sharing of strategic information. In the same way, India's efforts to establish itself as a formidable military force must be prioritized. What makes things fascinating, though, is that the United States isn't the only country planning to utilize India to counteract China's growing influence in Asia. Russia and India inked a white paper agreement in December 2021 to coordinate their Asian plans, with the primary goal of achieving a power balance among this enormous land corridor that links the two superpowers. Basically, this stock document encourages the countries to not form alliances with any big powers like the US or China, and that they'll be able to act as they please without any restrictions from superpowers in this way. They'd benefit from it because it would give them the power to maintain sovereignty over their own nation, even as the global landscape becomes increasingly complex and competitive. This has also given India a lot of influence in the region. Keep in mind that the new Belt and Road Initiative, which China is launching with the goal of linking the DRC to the West and the European Union, passes through the exact center of this commerce and influence axis. In sum, India's intricate web of strategic partnerships and diplomatic relationships allows them to evade potential liabilities and overly tight connections that could impede their long-term goal of unseating Switzerland as the wild wild-card referee. As a member of the BRICS geopolitical bloc since 2009, India has further established its place in the international community. Previously, the G7 was the economic powerhouse, but these days it's facing competition from the BRICS, an alliance of developing nations. Among these countries are India, South Africa, China, Russia, and Brazil, which constitute a sizable portion of the global population and economy when taken as a whole. More importantly, as a member of the BRICS group, India is no longer limited to associations with Western countries. This also helps India's long-term goal of marketing itself as a conduit connecting Russia, West China, and maybe the rest of the world. Despite the tensions with China over Kashmir, the presidents of the two nations meet to review bilateral agreements and national concerns on a regular basis, proving the effectiveness of India's foreign policies. But top-notch international arbitration doesn't stop at the largest international parties outside of the United States. Diplomacy from India reaches almost every country on the globe. In 2014, India announced its Look East policy in an effort to elevate its ties to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, to the level of a strategic alliance. 10 nations in the Indo-Pacific area work together as part of ASEAN, an international cooperative organization. To increase the stakes in the match against China and to forge links with the marine commercial hub dominating the Malacca Strait, ASEAN is an ideal partner in the Indian Ocean. Nevertheless, India is not merely gazing eastward, it is also gazing southward, or more accurately, southwestward. With 18 million Indians currently living abroad, it's the nation with the biggest diaspora. Consequently, India has plenty of reasons to leverage its diplomatic ties with a lot of other countries, and it also gets money when people working overseas use its national economies. And India has managed to achieve that, mostly thanks to its neutrality. There are two types of neutral countries. One seeks autonomy by asserting its interests militarily at the expense of all others. The other pursues autonomy by fostering cordial diplomatic relations with all stakeholders. The first category is called autocracies, and the biggest example of that is North Korea. China has also used forceful language and policies to advance its political aims, despite its open economy and international collaboration. The second group is international arbitrators, whose goal is to preserve cooperations with every other country, like Switzerland and, you guessed it, India. However, India has grown more pragmatic and adept at participating in many international conversations since the collapse of the Soviet Union. The country is currently rushing to join the new wave of adaptable democracies in Asia and is aiming to make neutrality its own identity, which is a must considering its strategic location. Located smack dab in the center of the Indian Ocean, Eastern Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Arabian Peninsula are India's immediate neighbors. Keep in mind that the positioning of India's marine zone puts it near the world's three busiest commercial arteries: the Hormuz Trade and the Adel Mandeb that leads up to the Suez Canal in the west and the Malacca Strait to the east. There's no way to overstate the significance of these gateways to global trade. 1/4 of the world's maritime trade is facilitated by the Strait of Malacca, which is between Singapore and Malaysia, and the Suez Canal, located north of the Adel Mandeb, connects Europe and the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean, which accounts for 12% of all marine trade on a worldwide scale and 30% of all shipping container volume. The UAE and Iran control the Hormuz Strait, which connects the world's oil and gas production hubs to the Indian Ocean and larger global trade. Consider that in 2018, the strait handled 1.4 million barrels of oil per day, which is equivalent to over 25% of the world's liquefied natural gas consumption and over 20% of the world's oil consumption. This strait will assume increasing significance as Russia is cut off from international energy markets. When seen in context, India's geopolitical position is both critical and nerve-wracking due to its strategic location. Even though it only carries 12% of the world's total maritime traffic, the Suez Canal connects the rich European nations to nearly half of the world's population. The world's richest countries are connected to developing countries thanks to this canal. So yeah, This state of affairs makes India the perfect broker between the West, or at least Europe, and commercial partners in Asia, Oceania, and even the west coast of Africa. The same goes for the Hormuz Strait, of course, bringing together the immense wealth of natural resources in the Middle East and the open sea. Last but not least, you have to consider how much Malacca's trade in of itself is important, not only for global trade per se. But until now, we haven't talked about a very important detail about India's strategic location, and that's Kashmir. Disagreements arose between India and its geopolitical rivals about the situation in the Himalayas. For example, in 2020, China prevented India from becoming a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. The UN Security Council is called upon whenever there is a need for a decision about the status of a war under international law. 5 serve as permanent members of the Council at this time: China, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and Russia, along with 4 others that are only in place temporarily. However, the position of a temporary member is actually quite appealing because, naturally, every member of the Council has the power to reject United Nations resolutions, and each member can also pursue their own geopolitical interests. The UN Security Council provides a great platform from which to establish one's nation as an authoritative and respected arbiter of global conflicts, which is why traditionally neutral nations are attempting to increase their involvement in the organization as of late. In its most recent request, Switzerland aimed to become the first member state to serve as a temporary observer for over 2 years in a row, from 2023 to 2024. India is eager to follow suit as well, even though the current climate is very hostile due to China's hostility. Nevertheless, this refusal is just the beginning of India's strategy to increase its neutrality and pragmatism. The geopolitical landscape around India and South Asia is extremely complex. Russia and China are often mentioned as good business partners with US diplomatic and military friends, and it's easy to see why. Both countries have many reasons to work together in various areas. That being said, there is a bit more nuance to the case. Nikita Khrushchev, president of the Soviet Union, used his veto power at the United Nations in 1962 to block a resolution that would have benefited Pakistan and China in the Kashmir conflict. Even though by 2019 there had been some significant international events, this direct backing for India's geopolitical goals remains very much in place. Putin's Russia extended its assistance to India once again through its sponsorship of United Nations regulations that would render the Kashmir dispute an issue for India's internal affairs and shield it from meddling by outside parties, proving once again how having good ties with all of the superpowers as a neutral country has helped India throughout the years, and how it'll continue to be the same. But what do you think? Will India really take Switzerland's place as the referee of the world, or is it just hype? Let us know in the comments below.